and welcome. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Transportation Committee for the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. I'd like to call this meeting to order and start off with our clerk, Ms. Lee, if you could take care of some housekeeping items for everyone.
Yes, absolutely. Good morning. Just a few housekeeping reminders before we get started. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available to view on SACOG's website after the meeting. For any members of the public tuning in today and who wish to make a comment, you can notify us by selecting raise hand or by pressing *9 if you're calling in by phone. All public comment will be limited to 3 minutes each. To help with timing, I will give the speaker a 1-minute warning. And lastly, this is for our committee members. Please remember to stay on mute until you are ready to speak, as this will help eliminate any background noise. And when you are ready to speak, please use the raise hand feature or press *9 if you're phoning in to alert the chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance. And Director Young, thank you for reminding me that this is the 70th anniversary of the National Day of Prayer. Would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Lee, if you go ahead and take the roll, please.
Yes, absolutely. Director Bradford.
Here.
Director Branscombe. Absent. Desmond.
Here.
Ledesma for Guerrero.
Here.
Jennings. Absent. Joyner.
Here.
Saylor.
Here.
Chenier.
Here.
Vice Chair Sander. Absent. Vice Chair Spokley.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Soon.
Here.
And ex officio member Tacker for Benepal.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And want to note that our Vice Chair Jennings had a family emergency and can't be with us today. We send our well wishes to him and his family. At this time, we have public communications for anybody who would like to speak on items that are not on the agenda. I understand we have one. I believe our old friend Rafe is joining us back. Rafe Porter here from Sacramento Air Quality Management District today.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, there you are. Yeah, we can hear you. Good morning, Rafe.
Good morning, Chair Soon and members of the Transportation Committee. I'm Rafe Porter, as the chair mentioned. I'm the program manager of the Transportation and Climate Change Division at the Sacramento Air District, formerly at SACOG. First, I wanted to take a second to thank Matt Carpenter for all the work that he's done and his friendship over the years. When I first met Matt, he was an associate planner at SACOG way back in the day, and it's really been a pleasure working with Matt. So thank you for that, Matt. Last month, the SACOG board took action on the regional funding round, and buried within that funding round, there was an action that the Sacramento Air District proposed for an extension of the Sacramento Emergency Clean Air and Transportation Program, better known as CCAT, since we all love our acronyms. This program is a great example of how our two agencies work together to further goals on clean transportation and clean air. This is a 6-county program that helps our larger federal non-attainment area achieve and maintain our air quality goals and provides our region a lot of flexibility in how we reach those goals. Many of the programs that the Air District administers follow stringent state guidelines that limit really who can participate. But CCAT gives us and program participants access to funds that otherwise they wouldn't have access to. And on that note, Sacramento Air District wants to let you know and hopefully get your assistance in promoting our 2021 Community Air Incentive Solicitation. We have over $18 million in incentives available for the purchase of clean, medium and heavy duty vehicles, farm equipment, locomotives, lawn and garden equipment, EV chargers, and hydrogen fueling stations. Some of these programs, like CCAT, are available in all 6 counties of the SACOG region. And pretty much anyone can apply for these funds, whether you're a small or big business, nonprofit, community-based organization, sole proprietors, or public agencies. They're all eligible to apply for these funds. So again, I would like to ask for your help to spread the word on this program. If you know anyone that is looking to expand their fleet, needs a charger, wants to clean up their equipment, they can visit our website and get more information at airquality.org. Your great staff at SACOG knows about this program, and they know how to get a hold of me if you have any questions or want to apply. So again, thank you for your partnership and support over the years and for your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafe. It's good to hear your voice again. I'm able to see you, but welcome back. And we appreciate our partnership with your district. I think it's safe to say all of us value clean air and breathing. So I look forward to continuing this partnership. Jessica, do we have the link to that program on our website as well?
I don't think we do, but we can.
Would that help, Rafe? Is that what, maybe get the word out?
Absolutely. I'll provide Jessica and Matt all the information that you need, and they can distribute as they see fit.
Okay.
That'd be great. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Here soon, a teaser for my executive director report. It was in there with a link. We can certainly put on the website, but I'm just, it's a gentle way of saying, I hope those executive director reports are helpful.
Yeah.
That is in your link, and all of you as board members, alternates, public works, we now send that pretty widely out to folks. So, but we'll look at seeing what else we can do to promote this.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much. Jessica, are there anybody else that wanted to speak on items not on the agenda?
No, there's no more public comment.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn as the SACOG and convene as the Capital Valley Regional Services Authority for Freeways and Expressways Committee, or CV SAFE. I think our first item here, I'm going to click over to my CV SAFE agenda.
Chairson, would you like me to call roll?
Yeah, yes, thank you very much.
Sure. Please let the record show that attendance remains the same with the addition of a few directors. Go ahead and respond to roll call when I call your name. Director Branscombe?
Here.
Thank you. Director Nguyen?
Here.
And Director Young?
Present.
Thank you. And like I mentioned, the others are still in attendance.
I'm here. Sorry, Jessica. Rich Desmond.
Thank you very much. I'll let the record show that.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to our directors and our directors from San Joaquin County. At this time, are there anyone who wishing to speak on the agenda on any items not on this agenda? We don't have any there, right? Okay, I'm seeing your head shake. Okay, go ahead. Then I'll move to the consent calendar. We have one item on consent, approving minutes from October 1st, 2020.
I move to approve.
Okay, I've got a motion from Director Young.
Second, Director Nguyen.
And second from Director Nguyen. And are there any comments from the public on this item, Jessica? Okay, seeing none. And I'll call for roll call vote, please.
Yes, absolutely. Director Bradford?
Yes.
Director Branscombe?
Yes.
Desmond?
Yes.
Ledesma?
Yes.
Jennings absent. Joyner?
Yes.
Saylor?
Yes.
Chenier?
Yes.
Nguyen?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sander? Absent. Vice Chair Spokley?
Yes.
And Chair Soon.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move to the action item on the agenda. Approve and release of the draft CVR Safe Fiscal Year 2021-22 budget. Barbara Van Bechtold, good morning.
Morning, everybody. I have the draft fiscal year 2021-2022 Capital Valley Regional Service Authority for Freeways and Expressways budget to present to all of you. I will go forward calling it the CVR Safe because that's a lot easier. The background here is the CVR SAFE is comprised of El Dorado, Sacramento, San Joaquin, Sutter, Yolo, and Yuba counties. And the revenues for the CVR SAFE are collected through a $1 fee assessed at the time of vehicle registration in each of the participating counties. And the CVR SAFE bylaws require that a budget be approved before July 1st of each fiscal year. In attachment A, we've given you the draft fiscal year 2021-22 budget. And this budget includes costs going towards the ongoing operations and maintenance of our core call box system. And then also includes funds for traveler services such as Freeway Service Patrol and the 511 StarNet system, as well as special projects like the Big Data Pilot Project and the Open Data Hub project. And also includes an exchange of funds, which we've been doing over the last 4 years with our Transportation Demand Management Program. We exchanged CVR SAFE funding for federal funding. This allows flexibility to implement and innovate mobility projects that are not usually eligible for federal aid. And we're currently negotiating new contracts with our vendors for motorist data operations and our private call box answering. It's the company that answers the call box calls, as well as the 511 roadside assistance calls that come in. We've included the costs from the approved proposals in the budget, though these numbers may change between now and when we come back to the May board with this item. So it's required that the CVR SAFE budget acknowledges there's cost sharing within our CVR SAFE region of vehicle registration funds that come from, we've termed donor counties, where they have excess revenues beyond what they need to provide the services that are funded by SAFE in those 3 counties. And they cover over expenditures from our 3 member counties that do not have quite enough funds to support their CVR SAFE funded services. Those 3 recipient counties generate a relatively low amount of vehicle license fee revenues to support their really significant interregional travel they accommodate along the roadways in our region. This doesn't require any service reductions for fiscal year 21-22 for our donor counties to accommodate this cost sharing. So with that, we're requesting that the CVR SAFE committee recommends that the CVR SAFE board approve the release of the draft fiscal year 2021-22 budget for a 1-month review and comment period prior to the final adoption, which we anticipate at the June 2021 CVR SAFE board meeting. I am happy to answer any questions you might have about the draft budget before you.
Thank you, Barbara. Are there any questions from the directors? Not seeing any. Jessica, are there any folks in the chat that wanted to speak?
No requests for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Bring it back. Directors, entertain a motion or any further comment?
Saylor moves approval.
Okay, motion from Director Saylor, Vice Chair
Desmond,
Saylor. I'm sorry, I missed that. Oh, Desmond. Yeah, Director Desmond seconded. Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Director Bradford,
Aye.
Branscombe,
Yes.
Desmond,
Aye.
Ledesma,
Aye.
Jennings, absent, Joyner,
Aye.
Saylor,
Aye.
Chenier. Director Chenier, can you indicate your vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Wynn,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sander, absent, Vice Chair Spokley,
Yes.
and Chair Soon.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. And we'll go ahead with that. We'll go ahead and adjourn the CVR SAFE committee and reconvene as the SACOG Transportation Committee. Take care. Okay, bring it back to the Transportation Committee. We have a consent calendar before us, approving the minutes from April 1st, 2021, and the year 2021 regional program of projects in Federal Transportation Administration funds, as well as the Downtown Transit System Integration Study. Are there any questions from the directors? Anyone from the public wanting to speak on these items? Anyone, Jessica?
No requests from the public.
Okay.
I'll move the item. Chenier.
All right, great. We have a motion from Director Chenier
Bradford will second.
and a second from Director Bradford on the consent items. We could do a roll call. Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Please prepare to answer when I call your name. Director Bradford,
Aye.
Branscombe,
Yes.
Desmond,
Aye.
Ledesma,
Aye.
Jennings, absent, Joyner,
Yes.
Saylor,
Aye.
Chenier,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sander, absent, Vice Chair Spokley,
Yes.
and Chair Soon.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to our action items. Item 4, request for proposals for Transportation Development Act Triennial Performance Audits. Ms. Carolyn Payne, good morning.
Good morning, committee. Before you, staff is bringing this item to request that the executive director releases a request for proposals for the triennial performance audits as is required by the Transportation Development Act. Briefly, this audit will cover the 4 county areas of Sacramento, SATA, Yuba, and Yolo. It will also evaluate the efficiencies and effectiveness of the transit operations in this region. The cycle this time will cover the years ending June 30th, 2019, 2020, and 2021. So the staff is asking this committee to recommend to the board to do 2 things. 1, to allow the executive director to release a request for proposals for qualified either auditors or consultants, and 2, for the executive director to negotiate, award, and execute contracts with these selected consultants. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Are there any questions from the directors for Ms. Payne? Seeing none. Jessica, do we have any questions from the public?
No public comment requests.
Okay, thank you. Bringing it back, are there, if there's no further comments, I'll entertain a motion from the directors.
I'll move approval.
Okay, Vice Chair Spokley moves approval.
Ledesma will second.
And seconded from Director Ledesma. Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Director Bradford,
Aye.
Branscombe,
Yes.
Desmond,
Aye.
Ledesma,
Aye.
Jennings, absent, Joyner,
Aye.
Saylor,
Aye.
Chenier,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sander, absent, Vice Chair Spokley,
Yes.
and Chair Soon.
Aye,
Motion carries.
thank you. We'll move on to item number 5, SACOG Title VI Program Report and Limited English Proficiency Plan. Barbara Von Bechtold, you're back up again. Good morning.
I am. Good morning. Sorry, give me one moment. I'm having a little bit of a technical difficulty here. Okay, sorry about that.
Great.
So the Federal Transit Administration requires that metropolitan planning organizations like SACOG, where we directly receive funds from the FTA, submit a program report every 3 years to maintain compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Title VI and implementing regulations require that FTA funding recipients take responsible steps to ensure equal access to programs and services regardless of participant race, color, national origin. So with that, staff has developed the attached in Attachment A, draft 2021 Title VI program report in compliance with the most recent Title VI guidance from FTA. And part of this compliance with Title VI, SACOG is also required to update our plan for special language services to limited English proficient populations. We've also updated that SACOG, it's called the LEP plan, that was last adopted in 2018 using the most current data available from the American Community Survey. And it shows the steps that SACOG takes to ensure that all persons, including those with limited English proficiency, have meaningful access at no cost to SACOG's programs and services, including the availability of language assistance they may need. So with that, staff requests the board approval of SACOG's 2021 Title VI program report and the LAP plan and the authorizing resolution so that staff can submit the report to the Federal Transit Administration. Again, the reports include an attachment A. SACOG has to submit this revised Title VI report and LAP plan by June 1st of 2021 so we can remain in compliance with Title VI and all other FTA requirements that are related. With that, I can answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Any questions for Barbara from the directors? I don't see any hands up. Can we go ahead and go to the public? Are there any comments or questions from the public, Jessica?
No public comment.
Okay, thank you. Bringing it back. Directors, any further comments or entertain a motion?
Bradford will move to approve.
Okay, thank you, Director Bradford. Motion. Can I get a second? Okay, and a second from Director Desmond. Roll call vote, please.
Directors Bradford,
Aye.
Branscombe,
Yes.
Desmond,
Aye.
Ledesma,
Aye.
Jennings, absent, Joyner,
Aye.
Saylor,
Aye.
Chenier. Director Chenier,
Aye.
thank you. Vice Chair Sander, absent. Vice Chair Spokley,
Yes.
thank you. And Chair Soon,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right. Moving on to our information items, I'm going to reshuffle this a little bit. We're going to move item 6 to the end of the agenda to allow for some folks who like to participate to arrive. And we'll go to item 7, our Sacramento Region Parks and Trails Strategic Development Plan update. Victoria Cacciatore. Good morning, Victoria.
Morning, Chair Suen. Thank you all for tuning in today for the informational update about the Sacramento Region Parks and Trails Strategic Development Plan. You received a handout earlier this week that outlines all of the work stages and pivots that we've had up to this point in time that will culminate in our network identification that starts next month. So since we will have a big discussion next month on the outreach efforts, we wanted to lay a little bit of the groundwork this month with the committee. So at the start of this project, one of the major milestones we had was conducting the existing conditions analysis. And our top headline from that was that only 41% of residents had access to a connecting trail. So a trail that's going to provide you access to a nearby destination, or it's long enough for you to walk out for 10 minutes and then walk back 10 minutes, thus getting some sort of health benefits. We also saw that lower income residents were 30% less likely to have access to those trails than higher income residents. We also conducted a review of local plans to see what the high level goals that throughout the region you could see resurfacing, whether you're in Lincoln or whether you're in West Sacramento. These are local goals that we saw across the region, and they were safety networks that would invite people of all ages and all abilities, economic vitality, environmental justice, health, and recreation. So those are the founding goals that people see in our active transportation connections and our trail connections throughout the region. And when we presented this information to your city and county staff and other invested stakeholders, they pointed out to us that given our region's, at that point, very entrenched position in the pandemic, we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but at that point, they felt strongly that there was a great potential for the goals around economic vitality, health, and environmental justice to provide some very strong guideposts, what we would want to elevate in our network. They also shared with us some of the challenges that they face in trying to form connecting trail networks. Some of those are more localized challenges that SACOG can help in different ways, such as there is a challenge around conducting meaningful engagement with local residents. That is something that is highly localized and tailored, but one way in which SACOG can support that is through the Engage, Empower, and Implement program that you'll see coming forward later this year. That is to help get local engagement up and running and providing the meaningful input that you need from residents. Where they saw the greatest potential and where you echoed the great potential for SACOG to help out is how cities, counties, and parks partners and natural resource partners can overcome both infrastructure and institutional barriers. So what it takes for cities and counties to foster the relationships with your reclamation districts to get that co-benefit of a trail along an access way, what it takes to get all of your ducks in a row to streamline a project that involves Caltrans right of way or overcoming a Caltrans facility. Those are the ways that we heard SACOG assistance is going to provide the most value to cities and counties. And we also discussed what some of our opportunity corridors are, because when we looked at where our existing facilities are, where our planned facilities are, there's still a lot of gaps. And if we have the goal to connect all of the communities in our region and to increase equitable access to a trail network that spans our region, there are some big hurdles that we will have to overcome. And we will have to look to different options that you and your local staff might see as an opportunity, but you haven't pursued it to date because it seems very complicated or it's difficult. There's countless backstories for why people haven't addressed some of these opportunity corridors, even though they think there would be benefit. So we're looking at the ways that we can tackle those. And our most recent step, which I owe a deep gratitude to everyone on this committee and to the SACOG board who helped us publicize it, was our outreach effort to hear from residents across the region about what is important to them in a trail connection. We did this in a slightly different way than how we've done other engagement efforts or outreach efforts through, say, the MTP SES. We asked people for specific destinations that they would want to go to, and then the story of why they want to get to those. We thought that this might be a way for us to learn about what people value in their trail connections and where they would want to go to, allow them to dream a little and not say, oh, it's impossible for us to get there. But by having this insight into what residents value, we are hoping that we can see how that either supports or does not support, quite frankly, the goals that we have found in all of these local plans. In my quick parsing of some of the survey results, it does seem like they are rather in alignment with some of the goals that we've already discussed, but there are over 3,000 completed responses, so I shouldn't speak too soon. We've only had those results for a few days now. And what we're looking to right now is first, whether there's anything else that you want us to be mindful of as we start our analysis of the the outreach results from our survey, and then to also raise awareness that we'll be bringing back formal guideposts to you for the identification of the trail network next month. That will be a multi-month process that is with your city and county staff and with other partners as we need to bring in to get to our goals.
Okay. Thank you very much, Victoria. Are there any questions for Victoria?
I have,
I have a comment, Chair.
Yeah, Director Schneer.
Yeah, and my apologies on the video. I'm getting my camera replaced, so I don't have a camera right now. So first of all, I think this is a great project, and Victoria, thank you for all your work on this and the outreach that you all have done. I think it's really important, and I think this will be a great amenity as we move forward for the entire region. So I'm very much in favor of it. I would like to say that I think it's going to be very important how we message this over time. I've followed some of the social media on this and understanding that that's a very small component of the general population. But some of the blowback from the Sacramento Bee article, which was a great article, was, oh, this is really about gentrification. This is about, you know, white middle class. And I know that these trails, and as I look at the maps, can be used by a very wide breadth of individuals. So just thinking through that as we message this, as we promote this over time. And I think this falls in with some of the other equity work that we want to do to make sure that those messages get out really clearly of who benefits over time from this work.
Well put. Thank you, Director Schneer. Director Branscombe, did I hear you? Did I hear you wanted to make a comment?
you caught me. Yes, thank you.
Okay, great, sure. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I forget the lady's name who was making the presentation.
Victoria Cacciatore.
Victoria. I have a question. The outreach, how was the outreach managed? Or how was that done? Was it a broad-based blast to the community and to get feedback?
The outreach was conducted by mostly leaning on city and county staff to help us promote that to their own audiences as, you know, as our local boots on the ground experts. We also identified a number of local serving groups that could help us reach a broader audience than, you know, who might be subscribed to, you know, say City of Elk Grove tweets. You know that there's a self-selecting audience that's going to follow their local jurisdiction's social media accounts. So we were also looking for ways that we could work through community serving groups and also employers, such as in Yuba and Sutter counties. We were able to get Adventist Health to share information with all of their networks. And we also contacted the Brenda Stranix from the economic group up in Yuba County to help with that work. And we've also been working with Yuba Water Agency through that. So we've tried to lean more on our community partners who maybe are not familiar with SACOG, maybe don't need to be familiar with SACOG, to figure out how we can reach them better through the channels that they have. And we also did a lot of targeted outreach through social media advertising to reach people in specific geographies as we saw which areas, you know, when we had about 2 weeks left in our survey, where we needed to get more responses.
Well, I'm impressed. The job obviously is to get a good sense of being market driven, which it sounds like you're doing a great job in terms of getting the input so you can be market driven, and then balancing that against what can actually be done. And you said it, and you say the market response pretty well maps with your original original thinking.
I have only taken a very cursory glance at looking through the different responses, so it is a little too soon to say, but I didn't want to be cavalier and say that we were going to identify completely novel goals based on the outreach. I don't know what we will find, but we're approaching it with curiosity and an interest in hearing what people have to say.
Well, I applaud your approach. Well done. I was just interested in the mechanics. Thank you.
Director Branscombe, I also took the liberty in targeting folks in my community who I knew were passionate about trails. And if any of the directors, saw that opportunity, I encourage them to do that as well. And if there's a further opportunity to conduct additional outreach. Director Bradford, I see your hands raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Director Branscombe's question and comment and what Victoria had to say. Just from someone locally here in the Yuba Sutter region, I did frequently see the SACOG ad in my Facebook feed, so it was working very well. And I did see multiple partners sharing on social media, as well as the newsletter I get from Yuba Sutter Transit had it mentioned in there, and possibly some other newsletters as well. I just can't remember everywhere I saw it, but it was multiple places for sure. So I think the strategy was working well, at least for those that are on social media, and connected to those partner groups in some way. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Bradford. Yeah, I agree with the comments that were stated. I think that the outreach was well done. It's tough. It's really tough to get all of you on here know. I mean, as much as we try to reach out, there are folks, who just don't, either they don't choose to chime in or they're just busy with their lives and they don't see it. And so I'm glad to hear you got 3,000 responses throughout the region. So I'm hopeful that it's also going to be, scattered throughout, so we get a good representation that's comprehensive for the entire region. Are there any questions, other comments from directors? I didn't want to stop anyone if we're getting some good flow and dialogue going.
If I may very quickly, again, I forget where this was done, but it was done at a university. It's a famous study. And the way they produced market-driven trails was over the entire area where they wanted trails, they just planted grass. And then they watched where people trampled down the grass and created trails. And that's where the trails occurred. Difficult to do here, but I think I'm impressed. I think Victoria and the group are doing it sounds like they're doing a wonderful job and being market driven, which is critical. Well done.
Yeah. And I want to also echo Director Chenier's comment. I mean, when we get this done, I'm being aspirational, but when this is done, it's going to be a fantastic civic amenity for the entire region. And I think will be, something that will be highlighted for much beyond this region. So I'm really encouraged and excited that, we can use the information, as Director Branscombe said, be market driven, figure out where we can strike first through funding and planning. And I appreciate the comments that you received so far, Jessica, about the need to work with our regional partners, whether it's Caltrans or any of the other governmental entities that will need right of way for building a trail as well. I'm preaching to the choir here, but building a trail, it seems simple, but there's so many complexities involved just to get permission to build a trail, and getting the rights can be challenging. So I look forward to SACOG's involvement in taking that leadership role as well. So Jessica, before we leave this item, is informational. Do you want to just, excuse me, not Jessica, Victoria, do you want to just highlight what your next steps are? I know you had the handout with the calendar, but maybe you want to, just for folks who are listening.
All right. And Jessica and I both have glasses. This happens all the time. So our next steps are we're taking a deep dive into the outreach results to see how those align with what we've already seen to be the sort of locally uniting goals, or the regionally uniting goals from the local level. And we will be sharing that with city, county, and other engaged partner staff in mid-May, and then coming back ideally in June for the Transportation Committee to identify the formal guideposts that we're going to use to identify the trail network with our implementers, so city staff, county staff, and so on. The list goes on.
Okay. Well, we look forward to it.
Here soon, if I just make a couple quick comments.
Of course.
Appreciate board engagement on this. I know we've had some really good transportation committee discussions on this project and frankly the vision. So two quick things. One is, and I appreciate some of the the questions from Director Branscombe and others. The staff here at SACOG really had to pivot on this because we got a grant from Caltrans and we were going to do the outreach that we typically do, which is to show up in public in person, and of course, with the pandemic, had to completely rethink. And I just want to give the staff here, Victoria, Rosie Ramos on our communications team, and many others a lot of credit for pivoting, coming up with a tool, doing something we haven't done before. And frankly, for all of you, as Victoria, recognized all of you, sharing it on social media, putting it out. This is an example of where board engagement, and there's still lots of gaps and lots of holes, but your engagement on this has just been tremendously helpful. That's why we're more than triple over what we had hoped to get actually for engagement. So, and I've now made a couple of you mad because we extended from April 30th to May 3rd, and now I'm getting, wait, can't you I've got all these people excited to take the survey, and we really couldn't reopen it for a whole bunch of reasons. It's a problem, frankly, I think I'd rather have than people not taking it. So, and then secondly, my point is, and really maybe for some of the newer board members, and I've talked to some of you a little bit about this, if you look at the existing trail network in this region, it's exactly the reason I think that you all get together here at SACOG and around this table, now a virtual table, which is it's start, stop, right? Some of your communities have great trails, great amenities, and then others don't. And it is disconnected and it's disjointed. And frankly, nobody, I think, really owns this vision to construct and build this thing. And in particular, right, for lower income communities, communities of color and disadvantaged communities. And that's probably the blowback on the SACB article. And it's understandable because we can sit here as planners and come up with all the great ideas we want, right? And we need to figure out a way in which we can truly connect every community and truly connect everybody. And that's going to take, as Victoria laid out the next steps, that's going to take a bit of work. If we can build this, though, if we can build this with equity in mind, and we can build a plan that really does create this vision and jointly own this as a region. We have the California Transportation Commission saying we need $2 billion more for things exactly like this. We have bills in Congress right now that are looking at trail networks and pilot projects around the country. That's the opportunity. That's the opportunity. So again, I want to emphasize for all of you just how important this is, and what a great opportunity. So more to come. Stay tuned. But I really think this is a great sort of symbol of the potential strength and synergy we have as a region, working with all of you, your jurisdictions, and truly trying to do really meaningful engagement. So thanks to the team here, Victoria, Rosie, many others. Great work.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, James, for your comments. I'll just quickly say that, I was mentioning, and my dog wants to speak. Sorry.
Dogs love trails too. I mean, there's another vote.
I was just going to add that market driven is good, but we actually have an opportunity to create a market. I think when this is built, we'll find people that will utilize this that hadn't thought of it before because it wasn't there. So
well, that's part of being market driven.
Yeah.
So well done.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Director Branscombe. Okay, we'll move on to, and this is a good segue into item 8 here. Kudos to staff for putting the agenda together. May is Bike Month update. So we'll move to I think Sabrina Bradbury has this one. Good morning.
Yes, thank you. Oh, just a moment. Just going to share my screen here. Everyone see my PowerPoint all right? Okay. Yes, thank you so much. And I agree, perfect segue into what we're doing for May is Bike Month this year. And I wanted to take a quick step back for our newer board members in particular, just to mention that in September of 2019, the board approved the 2020 Innovative Mobility Program Framework. And the program connects existing infrastructure with new services and technology to increase transportation options and reduce vehicle miles traveled in the region. And there are several programs that are under that umbrella of innovative mobility, including Civic Lab, Telework, which you'll hear about in the next item, and May is Bike Month. So this work typically takes the form of grant opportunities for member jurisdictions and participatory programs like Bike Month. The Innovative Mobility Program aligns with actions that are set forth in Policy 2 of our Metropolitan Transportation Plan Sustainable Communities Strategy, which is to foster the next generation of mobility solutions. So with that, I'll dive into what we're planning for Bike Month this year. This is an annual campaign that takes place across the 6-county region to promote bicycling as a mode of transportation to reduce traffic and improve air quality. And last May was unlike any other that we had seen before, of course, since taking this to a month-long campaign in 2004. And the health and safety of our community became our top priority and continues to be so. We were concerned about distributing materials and drawing crowds with t-shirts at events. So we shifted our focus to a virtual campaign, and I'll talk about what we're going to do to continue that virtual campaign this year, still encouraging people to get out on their bikes, but only if they can do so safely, practicing social distancing. And then I'll talk about our key messages of the campaign this year and some of the social media tools and strategies that we will use to convey those messages. So the first thing we did was decide that once again, like last year, we were not going to hold any in-person events. We do have some of our partners who are holding small events and rides, and we'll promote some of those on social media if they are small and in accordance with current health guidelines. But we'll really be keeping the campaign completely virtual and continuing to post on our social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and provide opportunities for participants to engage online with one another. And while we couldn't hold an in-person event, we did last Saturday kick off with a virtual event that included interviews and highlights from elected officials and community leaders from 11 locations across the region. So a special thank you to Committee Vice Chair Spokley, who joined us on that. And we also had Chair Gore, Vice Chair Jennings, Directors Gallardo, Harris, Kozlowski, Middleton, all joining us for this event. And it was a really great video. It's still posted on Facebook if you would like to go check it out, where we just had speakers popping in throughout about a 1-hour live stream and sharing what folks could do locally, where they could ride, what were some recent investments in infrastructure in communities across the region, and also highlighting the work that Victoria just talked about with the regional trails and parks planning. So last year when we went virtual, we made some updates to the website to put some of the leaderboard information and achievement badges a little higher up in on the website so that people could see all of that without having to navigate to different pages. In mid-April of this year, we started sending emails out to people who are registered on SAC Region 511 and May is Bike Month. It's a combined database with just 2 different front-end websites, and wanted to encourage them to check out our social media accounts for our virtual engagement. And we also began posting on those accounts in mid-April, reminding folks to get their bikes tuned up and go make a pledge on the website for how many trips and miles they would ride. As of this morning, we had over 5,000 trips and 65,000 miles that have been logged. So this year on messaging, we're focusing a lot less on the car trip reduction messages than we have in the past. Similar to last year, we're just encouraging people to get out on their bike for any reason and bike to any location. We still have a lot of people who are working from home, so we aren't focusing as much on commuting to work, but still encouraging folks to get out to the park, go to the grocery store, or other small trips that they might be making and could replace a car trip. But really just a bit more on focusing on social distancing and just encouraging people to get out bicycling for fun as a great way to enjoy the fresh air and get some exercise and reduce stress. And some of the strategies we're using to do this, as we've created things like these merit badges that are graphics that we share on social media and encourage people to share on their news feeds. And so while they're not integrated with the achievement badges that are on the website that folks can earn by logging a certain number of trips, or their a headwind achievement when you bike on a windy day, these are just graphics that people can share just for fun to create some engagement on social media. And we'll also be looking for other opportunities to engage with folks on perhaps a second virtual event that might take the form more of someone taking over our social media feed, like the Sacramento area bicycle advocates, for example, have them go live on the Facebook page, maybe at one of their bike valet events or Energizer stations. And we'll have more regular emails going out to folks as well that are talking about the theme weeks and encouraging or giving ideas about where folks can ride, because we know not everyone is on social media. So this is an example of this week's theme. We have Fantasy Week, encouraging people to dress up as their favorite superhero. And then we're creating games that go along with these, such as posting a picture of you biking in your superhero costume and tagging DC or Marvel. And at the end of the week, we will let everyone know who won, which hashtag DC or Marvel was the winner for that week. And we're also creating new social media graphics that highlight things like practicing social distancing, bike maintenance, and bike safety. And then you can see here in this slide, there's the Fantasy Week badge. That's one of those social media badges that folks could share. We also created GIFs that people can use to react to posts or create stories to post on their feed. And we have GIFs that are also part of our online toolkit. And that online toolkit is linked in the staff item. It's a Google folder that has all of the draft social media posts that we will be posting to the May is Bike Month social media accounts, the text and the graphics, all of it, as well as draft text for email or newsletter. And we really just wanted to give everyone all the resources that we are creating to post, that they could then post that as themselves and hopefully broaden the reach of the campaign. So the big ask for all of you is to please go check that out. And if you can help us spread the word or share that with your staff to help get the word out, that would be excellent. This is the first time we've done a whole folder of graphics and text. We typically provide a little bit of that, but this is a chance to really have folks post things as if they are running the campaign. So ultimately, we would just want to remind folks this year that bicycling can be done safely. It's a fun way to get some exercise and feel mentally refreshed. Before I close, I wanted to mention that the changes that we made were made much easier just because of the decentralized format that we had already been building over the years. This has very much been a partner-driven effort where it's really held by all of our transportation management associations, employers, the local cities and counties that are helping to promote the event and holding the campaign, and often holding their own local events that we are just promoting. And we have created this open website where anyone from a first grade teacher to an individual at a small or large business or community-based organization can access information and events for Bike Month. So as we continue to roll through May here, I wanted to reiterate that while the campaign's roots are in trip reduction, we're not focusing on that as much this year, but we think that that could have some long-term benefits of just reminding people to try out bicycling if they haven't before. And then we did mention in the staff item that we are working on a transition plan to hand this campaign off to another lead partner, that SACOG wouldn't manage the campaign going forward, but that we could provide the digital resources to interested partners to continue to promote the campaign. Like I said, it's already been very much operating like that. So this would take that a step further so that we could spend staff time thinking about how we build and test new multimodal programs and campaigns, particularly as people are returning to commuting to the workplace soon. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Great. Thank you so much, Sabrina. That's a lot of work you guys put in and putting together that campaign. Everybody, if you could talk to your staff to have them reach out to Sabrina, let's make use of all those materials. Are there any questions from any of the directors or comments?
Chair Soon, I've got a couple of comments. I just want to thank staff. Sabrina and Casey came up to visit us up in Auburn. It was a fun morning. I appreciate being included, so thank you very much for that. I will say that the folks that I saw with their bikes on camera, very many of them, if not maybe most of them anyway, were electric bikes. So it's a little bit cheating, but it's still a bike and we're still getting out there. It was actually fun to get mine out and dust it off and ride it on up to the courthouse. So thank you, staff, for that. Well done.
Thank you. And yes, the e-bike trip is maybe an easier bicycling trip, but it's not a car, so I'll take it.
Yeah, baby steps. Any other comments from directors? I know our bike shops earlier on in the pandemic got really busy because they were able to utilize biking recreationally and not having to that extra hour or at least half-hour commute each day, each way. So, okay, thank you very much again, Sabrina, and we'll keep getting the word out.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to item 9. The SACOG Regional Telework Pilot Initiative. Adrienne Moritz.
Good morning, directors. I'm going to share my screen with you here. Good morning, Adrienne Moritz, SACOG staff. Today I'm going to give you an update on our Regional Telework Initiative. It's been a bit of time actually since I've been to this committee to talk about telework. So I'm going to provide a quick background on the history of our work in telework and talk about how this fits into our broader program. So just like Sabrina mentioned in the May is Bike Month item, this is a part of our Innovative Mobility Program. So our current framework, which was adopted in late 2019, like Sabrina said, is a $3 million program. It's funded mainly with congestion mitigation and air quality dollars, or CMAQ money. And that means our goal through any of our innovative mobility work is really to reduce vehicle miles traveled, because that gets us closer to the goals set forth in our MTP SES. So we again, like Sabrina said, do this through two main avenues. Civic Lab is a big one. We had a cohort planned for 2020, but we postponed that due to the pandemic. So we're currently revisiting the design of that program. But the other big avenue is transportation demand management. And that's really where we try to change behavior to reduce car trips. So May is Bike Month, telework, van pool incentives, guaranteed ride home, all of that fits into this transportation demand management arm, if you will. And in our 2019 framework, telework is actually not mentioned. We had originally planned to start to focus on telework in later 2021, but the pandemic had different plans for us. So in the spirit of Civic Lab, we pivoted when we realized telework would be here to stay. And since mid-2020, we have been working with participating employers around the region to help us understand what we might be able to do to maintain some levels of telework that have come out of the pandemic, and really to replace car trips or commute trips with telework. So the goals and strategies that we developed throughout 2020 are detailed in your attachment A. I do want to note before we dive into the pilot that this is a small scale pilot and it does have limitations. We only have 11 participants. They're white collar employers where most employees do have the ability to telework. So we've done an employee survey where about half say they are required to go into the office as an essential employee. So you might think firefighters, public works, accountants, but we do not have representation in this pilot from hospitality or food or industries where a 9 to 5 or Monday through Friday schedule is not typical. So just want to make sure I made that clear before we kind of dive in here. So to just go through a little bit of the history of this pilot, which is detailed in your item. Early on, March and April 2020, COVID-19 started to shift many people to telework. So nationally, we know from the Bureau of Labor Statistics that was about 35% of the whole workforce moved to some level of telework. Locally, in our region, Valley Vision did a public opinion poll for the 4-county region. So Yuba, Sutter, Yolo, and Sacramento counties, and it was pretty consistent with that national data where about 38% of people did some level of telework during the pandemic. So there are big disparities here, as you can imagine, and have likely heard about, right, where income, education levels, and race affect your ability to telework. But still, many people did shift to telework. At the same time, people started driving, especially early on in the pandemic. So we saw drops in VMT over 50%. That was around April 2020. VMT started to increase as early as May 2020, so people were already starting to get back on the roads. So we have been using a big data source called Replica at SACOG, and so we know that since July 2020, VMT has actually increased 10 to 15%, which puts us pretty close to VMT in a typical year. So that means that people are back out on the roads. Even though we're still in this stage of teleworking, people are taking lots of trips. So ultimately, it's more important now than ever for us to be focusing on telework and try to maintain that so we can replace some trips with telework. So that's early on, all the way to the top left of your screen. We then wanted to talk with employers in May and June. So last summer, we were trying to understand how we might be able to help maintain levels of telework. So we had conversations with lots of employers. We learned really developing or modifying telework policies was a big need. Some employers did not even have telework policies at all and had to put something together very quickly when shelter-in-place orders happened. We also heard about getting kind of IT up to speed and also trainings for managers. There's just a new world for employers at that time. So then we took that information from those employer focus groups to design the pilot. We issued a call for applications over the summer, late summer, accepted 13 employers, since 11 have moved through the pilot with us. We also brought on 3 expert consultant vendors to support us. They have expertise in IT and policy, telework, and transportation demand management, or TDM. So we started having consultations with the employers. We really wanted to understand as participants now what they were doing before the pandemic, what kind of policies they had set up, and then really what they might be interested in going forward. So a lot of our work with our expert consultants to this point has been helping develop and edit, modify telework policies, having consultations, setting up internal focus groups for employees, because what we know from our participants are a lot are gearing up for a future hybrid workplace, right? Which you may have heard of, where some days you go into the office, some days you stay home to telework. Even just today, Google announced they're launching a 3-2 schedule where their staff comes into the office 3 days and teleworks 2 days, but that includes lots of flexibility. People can move offices, they can request telework. So it's just an example of a major employer doing what we're hearing from our participants in our region. And then as we move kind of to the top right of the screen, as we get closer to now, measurement, of course, is a big part of our work in this pilot. So we tried to understand from the employee perspective of these participating employers, what did you do before the pandemic in terms of telework, transportation? What were your behaviors? What are you doing now? And what might you want to do going forward? You know, it's not a representation of our region. It's not a sample that is representative of all employers. It's really just a representative sample of our small pilot, but still really good understanding for us that will feed into our next steps as we continue to move forward. So the 3 big kind of themes out of the aggregate data of this survey that are in your item are: employees like teleworking, they want to keep doing it. There is opportunity for us to reduce vehicle miles traveled and car trips. It might not be easy, but there is opportunity. And activity outside of work shifted a lot during the pandemic. And we mean, you know, shopping on Amazon instead of going to stores, or using Uber Eats to deliver your food instead of going to a farmer's market. You may notice that these are not surprises. This is pretty consistent with what we've heard nationally. Data sources are coming out almost every day. So this is pretty consistent with what we've been hearing. However, it's what we do next we think is important, because that will set ourselves up to hopefully make change based on these learnings. So I do want to just quickly go through each of these topics. Employees like teleworking, they feel successful doing it. Before the pandemic, respondents of this survey said only about 7% of them were teleworking at least 1 day a week. So not very many. This is pretty consistent with what we know from our 2018 household travel survey we conducted in the region, where approximately 10% of respondents were teleworking at least 1 day of the week. So even though 7%, 10% seems very low, telework was actually the fastest growing commute mode, so faster than bicycling, faster than walking. So telework was gaining momentum even before the pandemic. But as we can see now, many of our respondents are teleworking most full-time and want to keep doing so. So about half of the respondents, 50% or so, want to telework at least 2 to 4 days a week going forward, and 35% want to telework full-time, do not want to go back to the office. Again, very consistent with what we see from nationwide studies. University of Southern California just put out a study that is very, very similar. More than half want to telework at least 3 days a week. So again, this information on the screen is not representative of our whole region, but pretty consistent with what we've been hearing nationally. And then these were factors that people consider very important in their desire to telework. So very flexible schedules. That means you might take care of a child earlier in the day and then finish your work later in the evening, or extend your lunch period. So flexibility is important, work-life balance. And actually, many of our respondents said they were more productive. We did not have very many that said they were less productive when they were teleworking. I think it's important to note it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It may appear like that on the screen, but anecdotally, we're now hearing there is burnout. There is a lack of interaction from people who have been teleworking for so long. So we're getting requests for our expert consultants to provide more resources and training and help with that as we're kind of getting into the later stages of the pandemic and people are feeling a little bit anxious and wanting to be out and about again. So we asked employees, what do you need to be successful teleworking going forward? And we heard two big things, flexibility from my manager and supported telework policy. So that's definitely a focus area of our pilot right at this point. And then opportunity for reduced VMT. Most of the respondents drove alone before the pandemic, most all, 90%. And then in the green column, it's the same data from a few slides ago where there's a significant amount of people who really want to keep teleworking going forward. Again, consistent with our 2018 household travel survey data, where we learned on telework days, people drove less than average. On days they did not telework, they drove more than average. This was before the pandemic, of course, but if we can maintain some of these levels of telework, then we can hopefully keep reduced rates of VMT. And this, of course, does not account for work trips outside of the office, but again, we see high desire from respondents to save time and money and stress from commuting. We do plan to break down all of the survey results, but especially transportation for each of our participating employers, because we think there'll be some interesting information out of that. For example, City of Sacramento is one of our participating employers. They had similar results where 90% or so of their respondents to the survey said they drove alone, but 40% live within 5 to 10 miles of work. So what that means is there could be a good case for micromobility, the electric bikes or bike share, microtransit, public transit. So it is our job now to take this information and make sure that employees know about their transportation benefits, that we can really help incentivize using other modes, because we do anticipate people going back to the office at least some of the time. And then finally, activities outside of work. Again, you may not be surprised to know that respondents used online delivery services like Amazon. They used restaurant delivery services like Uber Eats or picked up food, and did things like go to in-person shops and farmers markets and activities much less than before the pandemic. So really, what do we do with this? What's next? First, we are going to take all of the survey results, and we're currently analyzing them and breaking them down per each of our participating employers. We're helping them finalize those policies. We've started working with them. Many employers are on the cusp of launching them, especially as shelter-in-place orders are lifting, and we do have the ability to go back to the office. So we're still in consultation mode, but really getting ready for the launch of these new policies. We plan to have transportation consultations, like I just mentioned. That means talking with employers about transportation benefits, how we might incentivize them. Is there a next step in our pilot that is transportation focused? And then finally, to get to those activities outside of work, where we have an economic assessment underway right now. That's looking at historical and projected telework rates compared with spending in our region and employment to hopefully understand how telework affects our local economy. So our next update to you as a transportation committee will be on this economic assessment. And then ultimately we're taking kind of the final outcomes and learnings from this telework pilot to build our next innovative mobility framework, which we're developing this summer. And then also using the data we collect to inform larger data collection efforts. as we start the planning process for our next MTPSES. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. It's good to see you again. Very informative. Any questions? I think Director Branscombe, is that your hand up there?
That would be me. Thank you. Adrian, tell me, has there been any correlation of the employee feedback to the employer profiles? In other words, is there a concentration of certain feedback with respect to certain types of employers?
Yes, we are currently analyzing it to get more correlations, but anecdotally, we know that even in the very early stages of this pilot, many employers were very interested in hybrid schedules. So at least allowing partial telework, which is a big desire of employees. We also know that participating employers were interested in helping essential workers, those who are required to go to the office, in amending job descriptions or providing additional resources to make them eligible for telework if that was feasible. Some jobs, like a firefighter, are not going to be eligible for telework, but there are some outdated job descriptions or managers who are not currently allowing telework. So employers were flexible and were interested in exploring all the options to kind of revise older strategies. So thus far, yeah, there's been a lot of alignment in what our employers are interested in and what the employees are requesting. I think we're at an interesting point right now where policies are about to start coming forward, and we'll see how closely they align with the employees' desires. Many employers will likely go back to the office. So those employees who want to telework full-time, there might be some discrepancy there. But the good thing is we're seeing a lot of alignment in that employers want to be flexible. They want to create hybrid work schedules. So good news on that front so far.
What about, have there been any productivity studies with respect to telework?
Yeah, in the early focus groups we conducted May, June 2020, productivity was actually one of the biggest, not a concern, but a challenge mentioned by many employers. They just were not sure if employees were being productive. They didn't know how to manage productivity. And a lot of that came out of us being in a place of, physically seeing employees and individuals in the office and associating that with productivity. Whereas then at home, you're not able to have that face-to-face connection. So it was much more on work products. So the employees actually they feel very productive, even more productive than before the pandemic. Very few, only 5% of our respondents said that they were less productive than before the pandemic.
Well, excuse me, but how many employers are going to say I'm less productive? Let me keep working at home. So,
yeah, to be clear, this was anonymous. We didn't want to collect personally identifiable information and make the employer aware of that. But we did ask from the employee's perspective, are you being monitored appropriately? Is your employer monitoring you too much, too little? And we saw significantly from the respondents that they felt they were being monitored just right. The employer's perspective, there are different ways of monitoring productivity. So some do it through chat systems where their employees just mark when they're available and not. Some just do it through frequent check-ins and meetings. So there's quite a variety of how employers are monitoring productivity.
I have not looked for any national studies on this, but they have. If they don't already exist, I'm certain they'll be forthcoming. That'll be interesting to track. Thank you very much, Adrian.
Thank you, Director Branscombe. Vice Chair Spokley.
Thank you, Chair Soon. Yeah, my office was a part of some of the initial conversations with SACOG on this topic. Your timing, Adriana, is perfect. We're on the 20th rolling out our work from home. We're actually calling it remote work policy because we do feel like with the different offices we have, that a lot of people will choose to stop at an office closer to home, which obviously helps with the reduction in VMT, than driving all the way down to our corporate headquarters here in Sacramento. So it's been a long process for us. We've been working on this program for about 8 months. We've thought through all of the pitfalls that we might experience, but to Director Branscom's comments a moment ago, the employees will tell you that they're very efficient and they're doing a fantastic job communicating with their coworkers in that remote environment. When we monitor all of that stuff here, and as owners, I can tell each and every one of my employees how effective they are in working from home. So we've spent a lot of time here at my company working on this program. We're about to go live with it. It's going to be interesting. We do have a big fear because we work so hard on company culture here at my firm, that by allowing more people to choose when they want to come into the office, we're going to lose some of that cohesiveness that we feel like we have here. But we're also smart enough to realize that it's not going to go away. We've got some folks that are much more effective working remotely than coming into the office. And that's basically just because we're cutting drive times out of the equation. And instead of a 35 to hour-long commute to get to the office, it's a grab a cup of coffee and go sit in your office at your home. And that's huge. That's been fantastic for us. So we're going to roll this out. We're going to see how it goes. But I think the work you're doing is great. The support that you provided and the like, I think has been very beneficial for a lot of companies. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Spokely. I was going to direct this question to Adrienne, but I'm gonna maybe ask you, Vice Chair, if you want to weigh in. I'm curious about implementation, as everybody mentions. They want to, part-time telework, and then some people are going to be back in the office. We've been operating in an environment where nobody is physically present, but let's say if you have half this committee who's at the SACOG building and the other half is doing this remotely, how will that play out? Is there a big TV screen and that we're all be able to fit in and be looking at to have a meeting? I'm just wondering if that's been thought through by the employers.
Well, yeah, we have certainly thought that through, Chair Soon. We have equipped all of our conference rooms with large monitors. Our firm utilizes the Microsoft Teams platform, and we can have 350 employees on a Teams call and convey messages across our corporation. So it's been a very successful platform for us. We're leaning towards kind of requiring certain things like client meetings, if those are going to be in person, that employees show up for those meetings. Special culture events that we have here at the office, like a barbecue or a lunchtime event. Those are mandatory events that folks have to show up at. It's kind of a hybrid, and we're jumping in, but we're also very conscious that we might have to tweak things as we go to improve upon the policies that we're about to roll out.
Thank you.
Chair, ditto, very similar sentiments we're hearing from our participating employers. Employees are quite anxious about hybrid meetings and how that will work. They're used to telework at this point, but partial in person, partial at home. However, many employers are doing exactly what Director Spokely said and retrofitting offices or preparing for that because it'll likely be a part of our future.
Thank you. It's good to know. Well, I'm curious to see how it all works out, and appreciate the information. It certainly provides affirmation to what at least I've experienced and my colleagues, the preference to telework and the feeling of productivity, because you can just jump right in and start right away without having to drive to work first. So are there any other questions from the directors? And Jessica, I don't see any hands up in the public as well. No. Okay.
Yeah, no requests.
All right. Well, thank you very much. As an informational item, it's good to see you again, Adrienne. We'll move on to back up, I guess, to item 6.
Very soon. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, go ahead, James.
Just real quick, and I'm sure we will come and give you a more detailed update, but I was expecting the question of what's actually going to be happening for SACOG as an agency and an organization, but I can tell you we are trying to equip now as we speak a lot of our meeting rooms with same thing the Vice Chair Spokley just mentioned, right? So there's a sort of a hybrid approach that we could use. And just a thought that I would throw out there, and this is not for discussion now, but it is interesting to think about. I know I've heard from many of you, you can't wait to get back together and see each other in person or meet each other for the first time, given all of our new board members. And certainly want to try to make that happen. We've got a board retreat date, October 1st, that we want to do in person. As we think about going forward, there's an interesting opportunity here. I think the Zoom calls through the board, the committees, the board itself does allow for some board members to participate who from further out places who otherwise would be very hard for them to make all of these meetings. So you get a wider, I think, array of board members actually engaging and being on the SACOG board, number one. And two, as we think about workshops and speakers, and we're just trying to line up a couple for the next few months, we now have access to a whole bunch of people nationally who can come speak to the board who wouldn't be able to fly out here. So I just want to put before we kind of rush back to exactly the way we did everything before, I do want to tell you, we're also working through all this. And would love to get thoughts, not now, but I'm happy to get Director Bradford's thoughts, but yeah, so.
No, thank you, James. And just curious, before I go to Director Bradford, are we not bound by the same Brown Act rules? So if you did have
well, that is the question among many, right? Is when that executive order that allows us to do this right now might get lifted and might get rescinded. And so we do have to and we'd have to, that then creates another issue that we have to contend with. But I think, again, on the flip side, interesting in terms of just, I know we don't have a ton of public comment, but we have a lot of people listening in. We have a lot of members with special needs, mobility impairments, and they have that ability over Zoom, perhaps, which is a little easier. Anyway, so we're trying to weigh all those things. And I guess I would just say, we are trying to take the telework pilot to heart ourselves, right? And just think a little bit about, do we have to just go back to the way everything was? Or is there some way we could do this, that actually reaps some of the benefits of, as we've just been talking about, what we've all been learning the last 13 months. So anyway, I know Director Bradford has his hand up.
Yep, Director Bradford, go ahead.
Great, thank you. So, I'll save any comments specifically about my opinion with respect to what SACOG should do, but I'll definitely share what Yuba County recently started doing. We had been meeting 100% via Zoom throughout the entire pandemic, much like SACOG has been doing. But 2 meetings ago, we did start hybrid meetings using Zoom. And so far, I would say it has been very successful. So we did have the appropriate equipment, which I think is kind of key to do that. You can't just stick a phone in the corner of a room and turn on Zoom. It's not going to work out very well. But we've had both staff and public and board members participating both remotely and in the room at our last 2 meetings. And it's been fairly seamless. We're lucky all the board members happen to have a monitor in front of them on the dais. And so we can view the Zoom screen. And if someone's speaking remotely, we see that individual right there. There's 2 large monitors in the room so that the public who's physically in the room can see any public or staff member that happens to be speaking remotely on Zoom. And similarly, there's a camera pointed at the dais, and so that we appear as that's probably the only little bit of a challenge, is the whole dais appears as one little box on Zoom for the people that are attending remotely. So it might be hard to see which board member in person is speaking. And then in addition, presentations, of course, as long as the screen is shared on Zoom, we have it set up so that whether the presentation is being given in person or whether it's being given remotely, all the monitors show that presentation. And so it's been very beneficial. And I do hope that legislation allows that to continue from a Brown Act perspective. I know there's a lot up in the air with respect to that, but we certainly continue to plan on moving forward with that. Hopefully for staff, board members, if allowed by the Brown Act, and public into the future. We don't plan on switching back to just physical meetings because it is valuable, and we do have public participating both ways. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Director Bradford. Appreciate those insights. And hey, we've been all boards and commissions and everything have been doing this all year long. So you have to wonder, is it perhaps an opportunity or to revise the Brown Act to enable this type of meetings? So, okay.
One last thing for certain, and then I'll end, which is the mega region working group between our region, San Joaquin County, the Bay Area, is going to have to absolutely be just over Zoom forever, because it is the only way we've actually been able to get everybody together. And I'm quite serious about that, right? If we think about this, that this technology allows that work.
Good point. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to item 6, our wrap-up item. The Federal Transit Administration 5307 and 5339 discretionary share evaluation criteria.
All right.
And we gave you a break.
I got a long break. Okay, so we're back to talk about the evaluation criteria that we use for our discretionary share process. And I'll just give a little background on this because I know not all of you have seen this previously. In 2014, the SACOG board approved a memorandum of understanding that established a methodology for programming FTA funds in the Sacramento urbanized area. This MOU was subsequently approved in 2015 by all participating local governments and transit operators. And as part of this MOU, the methodology, 88% of FTA formula funds for each year are distributed through a service-based earn share, and the other 12% of the funds are programmed projects identified through a biennial or every 2-year competitive application process, and we call that the discretionary share. So back in March, we came with the earn share programming to the Transportation Committee, and we're asked to return to discuss the discretionary share evaluation criteria in light of the concurrent work that's happening on the next generation transit study. And although the process of the development of the next generation transit study is continuing, the draft plan won't be released until late May. So because of this, we're not yet asking the Transportation Committee for an action. Instead, we're seeking your initial round of input on the discussion draft, which is attachment B of our discretionary share evaluation criteria during this May board cycle, because we'll be coming back to the board with this information as well. Staff initially consulted the Sacramento urbanized area transit operators in March to review the discretionary share evaluation criteria and receive any transit operator comments. At that time, the Sacramento urbanized area transit operators didn't suggest any changes to the existing discretionary share program and evaluation criteria. But since that time, significant progress has been made on the next generation transit study. And there's been an increase in interest in using the plan to guide future investments. So because of this, after talking to you and to the board later this month, we'll go back to the Sacramento urbanized area transit operators to review a draft of the updated discretionary share program criteria alongside the existing one, which we've also provided you today, and that's attachment A with your staff report. And we'll use this feedback from the transit operators to be a critical component when we come back in June with staff recommendations related to the evaluation criteria that we use to program those Federal Transit Administration funds. And then once we have that approval in June, hopefully, our transit operators will be able to hold our call for projects for this discretionary program, and that'll allow our transit operators to submit applications and for those awards to be made. So with that, we have attachment B, which is that discussion draft, we called it, of the evaluation criteria that we use to allocate the FTA 5307 and 5339 funds, that 12% discretionary share. So as you can see, we've added information here regarding our next generation transit studies, as well as agency short-range transit plans. That information was in there. We've tried to flesh out the ways that we evaluate the applications we receive. We have, for most sections, we have a high score range, a medium score range, and a low scoring range based on the ability of the applicants to address each of the evaluation criteria that we have as part of each section. And then if you look down, hopefully you've had a chance to review this. At the very end, we have some illustrations of different kinds of projects that may come as a result of the next generation transit study and the program strategies from that. So unless you'd like me to go through each section, I can do that if you'd like. I'd be happy to take any input you might have on the discussion draft we've provided for the evaluation criteria.
Thank you, Barbara. Let me ask the directors if there's a preference. Would you like Barbara to go through each section? Okay, seeing none, I think we're good, Barbara.
So do any of the directors have any input about the discussion draft we've provided?
I don't see any questions. Jessica, are there any comments from the public on this item?
There are no requests from the public.
Okay. Oh, Director Saylor.
Thank you. Thanks, Darren. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. There's a comment here at the beginning of the package about who is the raters, and it says says SACOG representatives, non-applicant agencies, or something like that. Who would be doing the evaluation?
The evaluation usually SACOG staff, members of our transit team mainly, and the non-applicant agencies is referring to agencies in our whole 6-county region, because again, this is a Sacramento urbanized area that we're talking about for this discretionary share process. And so we have agencies that don't really qualify to apply for the funds because they're not within the urbanized area, or they are in the urbanized area but have chosen not to apply for discretionary funds. We invite some of them to also come help us, evaluate these different applications we receive for these FTA funds.
Okay, so our transit agencies.
Yes, we have transit agencies. And then we've also had representatives from jurisdictions in the past, as well as from the other RTPAs, the El Dorado County Transportation Commission, as well as the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency as well.
Okay, Barbara, the item in the attachment B, it's item, I guess, section E, next generation transit program strategies. I think these are intended to be samples of project concepts that might come forward. This would not be a part of the evaluation.
No, these would not be a part of the evaluation. It's just to give the committee and then further the board an idea of the different kind of projects that could come as a result of the next generation transit study.
Okay. Is this weighting of evaluation criteria different from in prior years?
In prior years, we had the high, medium, and low categories, but we didn't have point groupings like we have now, and those have been added as part of the attachment B, the discussion draft.
Okay.
To make it clearer for our applicants to know, if I got a medium score, why did I get a medium score, and what was my score in that particular category?
I think this is a very, very solid, robust way of thinking about how these projects will be, how applications would be evaluated. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Director Saylor. I agree. I mean, I think it adds some measure of, quantitative analysis, and certainly lends itself towards being consistent with MTPSCS, which, this board knows too well. And actually, there's a luncheon item on that. I'll plug that for a second, James, for you. But also the examples. I mean, the next generation transit. We've been talking about this for the last couple of years now, and so I'm glad to see. There's somebody who's for someone not on mute. I think if you can mute us, I'm not sure who that is. Oh, anyway. But anyway, I appreciate the samples here. We certainly know the success that microtransit, micromobility has been in our region, and so just giving folks something to go off of, I think is very helpful. So.
Chair Soon, if I may add, just a kind of a little bit of something about process or the roadmap ahead for the benefit of those that might be listening, or even the directors. May is going to be an important time where we'll be further vetting, the ideas you see here in these guidelines. We'll both be meeting with the Transit Coordinating Committee in a couple weeks, and Barbara will be leading that discussion. And then our project manager, Chris Doherty, for the Next Generation Transit Program, who's with us today, he'll be also continuing to almost have targeted outreach, one-on-ones, as well as group discussions, so that we can come back to you in June with really good input from those advisory groups that that are part of the Next Generation Transit Program, as well as our transit operator community through the Transit Coordinating Committee. So stay tuned. We don't anticipate significant change based on the encouraging feedback this morning, but we will come back with you with potentially other refinements, and we'll hopefully be able to then get some good board input, and then be able to move forward with this in the summer.
Fantastic. Thank you. Man, how many more committee meetings are you going to be with us?
Well, I may be in the background next month, but this will probably be the last one as kind of the direct staff. So it's been a pleasure working with you, Chair Soon, and everybody. So it's been a great road.
Likewise, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll get a chance to say goodbye at a full board meeting, but at least from the committee perspective, really appreciated your help and guidance on here.
Great, thank you so much.
That opportunity is the May board meeting this month, so we'll honor Matt with a resolution, and just want to queue you all up. So that's coming in 2 weeks.
Great, thanks, James. Okay, are there any other comments or questions on this item? Okay, seeing none, just to confirm, Jessica, I don't see anybody in the public who'd like to speak or ask questions. Okay.
No requests.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to other matters. I mentioned the lunchtime meeting. I don't know if James or Matt, do you guys want to add any more details about that?
I defer to James on that.
Oh, again, just please join us. We are, for all the board members, particularly the new ones, kicking off the next Metropolitan Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy that is due to be adopted by this board in 2024. But as many of you veterans know, you complete one plan and you almost begin on the next almost immediately. So, and it is a complex, sometimes technical process that our staff, I think, does a great job of trying to explain to all of you as the decision makers. Anyway, it's one of our the monthly lunch series. There'll be another one actually in June, just to tease this, on pricing, on road pricing and congestion pricing and vehicle miles traveled. So that's a really important one in terms of the future. Just a couple of quick other matters. I believe I mentioned this last time. I sort of feel like I should never get too excited about Congress doing something big on transportation and infrastructure, because I've been down that road too many times and been disappointed. And who knows if they can figure something out and get a bipartisan deal together. However, you all know this, I'm sure by now, there is an opportunity, probably the best one I've seen in Congress for about 10 years. Please, and the earmarks are probably coming back. Please have you and your staff just continue to coordinate with us. Some members of Congress and offices have been really good about letting us know earmark requests. Others come in. Sometimes we're a little unaware and have to respond very quickly. So we're not trying to be a heavy hand in this, but of course it has to line with the MTP, has to line up with the MTIP, and it looks better if we're all on the same page. So just my continued plug for us to be well coordinated on any kind of project, special project requests. I guess we're not calling them earmarks now, but special projects. And finally, as the Policy and Innovation Committee knows about, we have hired federal lobbyists for the first time in 4 years, because not just the infrastructure bill, but transportation reauthorization, appropriations. So, and I believe our new lobbyists will be coming to the board in June, at least the policy committee. So just a quick update from the transportation side of this. So thanks.
Great. Thank you, James. Yeah, it is confusing. I know the House and Senate have called them different things. I think the House is community project funding and the Senate's calling it congressionally directed funding requests. So, but by any other name, an earmark. Okay, if there's no other matters, next item is adjournment. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.